Hey friend, Sean with Guided Productions. Today is a great day. The sun is shining. Well, actually, it's a little overcast, but that's okay. I've got breath in my lungs, and today we're talking about microphones. That's right. As a longtime singer-songwriter, I've used microphones my entire life. I use microphones to sing at my church here in Florida. I've used studio mics to record instruments, much like this acoustic guitar you see behind me. And of course, I've used plenty of microphones in video. But have you ever noticed that microphones range wildly in price, and you can get them in any shape, color, size that you can imagine? How do you know which microphone is the right fit for your project? Well, today I'm going to introduce the 3 most commonly used microphones in video. I'll give you a couple of honorable mentions, my personal favorites, and if you stick with me to the end, I'll show you how you can get usable audio from your smartphone if you're ever in a pinch. So let's get into it. Now, our first contender is the supercardioid directional microphone, also known as the tube or shotgun mic. It's found on every film set from Hollywood to Bollywood, and I have with me here today the Rode NTG2 shotgun mic. It's a great entry-level mic. It doesn't break the bank. I think this one retails on Amazon for around $269, but the thing's practically bulletproof, so I'm sure you could get it half the price used somewhere on the marketplace. Now, this mic is primarily designed to capture dialogue for video, right? Because it does a great job of capturing the audio that it's pointing to. It does a wonderful job filtering out background noise, but it's going to capture really clearly everything that it's pointing at. One thing to keep in mind with a shotgun mic is you're going to need to power it in some way. Now, this particular mic does have a AA battery that you can put right inside. Some of the newer models actually let you charge them. I don't love that because you never really know when they're going to die, and the last thing you want is a mic to die mid-shoot. In addition to that, you could also have phantom power, which is something that I'll describe later in the video, but at least it gives you an idea that we're going to need to power this mic. Okay, next up on our list is the lavalier mic, or lav for short, and it's sometimes called the lapel mic because it's designed to clip onto a lapel or a tie or go into the shirt. It's a teeny tiny microphone that gets up close and personal with you or your subject. It's got a long cord that then is connected to a transmitter. Usually you'll see a little box on the belt loop, and then that transmitter takes the audio signal, sends it across the airwaves to a receiver where it collects the audio and stores the data. Now, much like the shotgun mic, the lav is designed to collect dialogue, and it does a great job of doing this for a couple of reasons. They usually come either as an omnidirectional or cardioid polar pattern. Don't worry if this sounds like gibberish, but that's going to capture everything that's coming around the microphone. Usually you don't really want to capture everything, but in this case, because the mic is so close in proximity to the talent's mouth, you're pretty much always going to get very clear audio from that sense. Now, also like the shotgun mic, you're going to need to power it. You don't need phantom power for a lav, but the transmitter and the receiver are going to need some level of batteries. I highly suggest replacing them either every shoot, checking battery levels often if you have an indicator of some kind, because you never want your mic to fail mid-shoot. Now, speaking of failing mid-shoot, I'll leave you with this before we move on with lav mics. I highly recommend always recording every shoot with at least 2 sources of audio. Now, I say this because you never want a mic to die mid-shoot. You don't want your batteries to die or a mic to just fail. Technology fails. Not everything is perfect. And nothing is more frustrating or embarrassing, frankly, to have to tell your subject, hey, we just shot this interview for an hour. We don't have any usable audio and we're going to need to start over. So I highly recommend shooting with at least 2 sources of audio just to save yourself in the long run. Now, as I mentioned, I don't actually own a lav mic, so you're going to have to accept this picture of it, and that's a little bonus tip for you. Don't go out and buy something if you don't have a need for it yet. I'm sure I'll acquire one in time, but I don't have one today. Now, moving on, the 3rd most commonly used microphone in video production has got to be the field recorder, much like the Zoom H4 Essential. Now, this one's going to be a little more controversial because I don't think it technically falls into the microphone category, but it's got a mic, it powers mics, and it's used extensively in video production, so we're talking about it here. Now, I could make a whole video around field recorders themselves, but I just want to talk about a few things here. The first being inputs, XLR inputs or mic inputs. You want to look for one that has at least 2 inputs. And the reason I say this is, as I said before, you always want to record with at least 2 sources of audio in case a mic fails, in case a battery dies. That way you've got a backup. Also, if you're in an interview setting where you have multiple people exchanging conversation, if you're doing a podcast, you're going to need at least 2 microphones to capture that, so always look for at least 2 inputs. I also want to highlight the stereo mic on top. Not every field recorder is going to be designed this way, but I like it as a backup in case I want to capture some room tone. That's a very good useful way with the stereo mic. Also, if I'm ever in a pinch and I realize I left my video mic at home, now I've got a backup. I'm always going to have this with me. A couple of other things to note: memory. You do have to supply a memory card to this. Now don't skimp out here. You want to make sure that you have enough memory to capture hours of audio so that nothing breaks or stops mid-shoot. I would even suggest having a couple of memory cards, but go big. You can always go back to your computer later on and offload that audio into a hard drive or SSD, free up some space here, but I would highly suggest going with a much higher and also a high-speed memory card for your field recorder. Now, we're going to need to power this bad boy. Okay, a lot of field recorders will take batteries like this one does, but I've noticed that they die really quick because they're doing a lot inside this little box. You can also get them where they have a DC volt input. You can connect it right to a wall, but if you're doing something like, say, a wedding and you need to capture audio, you usually don't have the luxury of plugging it into a wall. You could try a tree, but I don't think that's going to work so well for you. So always have batteries on hand and look for one that may potentially have a DC output as well. Okay, and the last thing I want to mention is phantom power. And we talked about this in the beginning with a shotgun mic. We're going to talk about this again in a little bit. Phantom power is a external source of power that goes to your microphone. It's designed specifically for that. It's 48 volts of power that powers your microphone. Field recorders possess the capability of delivering 48 volts of phantom power to those microphones. And so the reason I highly suggest a field recorder, the reason I wanted to bring it up here is because if you're shooting on a Supercardia directional microphone or a tube or a shotgun mic, you're going to need to power it with that external power. Now again, I mentioned the NTG2 does have the AA, but these things tend to eat through batteries really quickly, so if there's any way that you can power it with an external source, that comes highly recommended. Now I can't do an entire video on microphones and not mention a couple of my personal favorites. I could, but I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. Now who am I kidding? I sleep like a baby. Well, that's not true either. Have you ever seen a baby sleep? Sorry, I'm off track again. As a musician, I fell in love with the large diaphragm studio condenser mic, much like this Audio-Technica AT2035 that I bought at my local guitar store in high school, and I still continue to get amazing audio quality from it. Now, why didn't I mention this before? Well, that's because large diaphragm condenser mics are often found in recording studios, not usually with videographers, but they certainly have their place with video. Think of your favorite car commercial or your favorite movie trailer, as if anybody has a favorite car commercial. It's got to be Chevy like a rock. Anyway, you're hearing that voiceover, right? That's most likely been recorded with a large diaphragm studio condenser mic, much like this one. Now, these are ultra-sensitive mics. That's why they're great at capturing the dynamic range of the human voice, in addition to acoustic guitars or any sort of acoustic environment. These mics are great for that, super sensitive. But because they're so sensitive, you don't always want them on a film set where you may have people moving around. You're going to get the rustling of everything. They literally capture it all. In fact, I have to have what's called a pop filter between me and my mic when I'm recording music to get rid of the plosives, the B's, the P's, anything that may explode. It's going to make your mic pop. Now, what's interesting is you're actually starting to see more and more of these types of microphones making their way into podcasting. Again, they capture the human voice very well, and they're even showing up in video podcasts in front of the camera, which I think is pretty cool. And lastly, I've got to give a shout out to the stage mic, commonly used for live performances or speaking engagements. If you close your eyes right now and imagine a microphone, you're probably seeing the silhouette of something like this. They usually have a little switch on there, which is really handy when you're in a live situation to be able to kill your mic if you need to. Sometimes there's feedback and that sort of thing. Now, generally, these aren't used to record audio for video, but there are plenty of examples where they're used either as a prop in, say, a movie or with a live speaking engagement. You'll see lav mics here too, to record audio that's then broadcast. You know, when I sing at my church on Sundays, I use a mic like this. It's then broadcast via our live stream, which is video. Okay, I know what you're thinking at this point. Sean, these all sound like great options, but they also sound pretty expensive. What if I don't have the money to go out and buy a new mic today? Or worse yet, I bought a mic, but I left it at home. Don't panic, you can still get usable audio from your smartphone. Obviously, I would never recommend this as your primary source of audio, but it can certainly help you in a pinch. If you do plan on doing video for any length of time, I would recommend a high-quality shotgun mic as one of your first investments. You'll never regret it. Anyway, circumstances have led you to this point, and we're going to make the best use of it. So, first of all, we're going to need an app that can record audio. Now, I can't speak to my Android friends. Sorry. But to my iPhone folks, I know you have voice notes. That works really well. You can use the free version of GarageBand, but I have to imagine that either on the Google Play Store or the App Store for iPhone, there's going to be a free app that will record audio. So just start there. Next, you need to get that phone as close to your subject as possible. Now, in this day and age, it's pretty normal to see people holding things in their hands, especially a phone for comfort, or I don't know why it is that we do this, but this is totally acceptable these days. So as long as your subject has their phone in your hand, I would suggest holding it upside down where the speaker is at the top facing their mouth. Otherwise, believe it or not, I used this before. I had a shotgun mic. I had a talent actually put her phone on the table in front of her. Was it perfect audio? No, but with a little cleanup in post, we had something usable. And there you have it, a microphone for every occasion. Do you need to catch them all? No way. But remember, a little creativity can go a long way here. First, figure out the type of filming you'll be doing the most of, and then invest in a mic that best suits your needs. And if you're just stepping into the world of video, but you don't know where to start, I want to give you a free gift. It's my 6 steps to creating better video guide. This guide is packed full of nuggets that'll help you write your story, prep the gear, and produce a polished video that'll impress your friends. It's my free gift to you for hanging out with me today. You can go to guidedproductions.com/bettervideoguide to download your free PDF copy. Otherwise, I'll put a link in the description. Again, guidedproductions.com/bettervideoguide. Thanks again for spending a bit of time with me today. I don't take that lightly. Now go make something amazing, and I'll see you on another video real soon.